So now that you have a radio, what do you do with that radio after the ground stops shaking and we've had a major earthquake? Well, the first thing you need to do is check on your own safety. Are you okay? Are you injured? That is your top priority, taking care of yourself. Your next priority is taking care of your family. Are they okay? Next priority, your house, your neighbors, what is directly around you. Only after you know that you're okay and the people immediately around you are safe, then are you ready to start helping the community. So the first thing you need to do, once you're sure that you're okay, turn on that radio and listen. There may already be emergency traffic going on there, so don't press the transmit button until you've already listened and know that channel is clear. The other thing to remember is that in an emergency, in a disaster, if you have a GMRS radio, you are supposed to have a license for this, but in an emergency situation, the federal government has an exception to that licensing requirement and is covered under FCC Regulation 95.143. And the summary is that in a disaster emergency situation where there's a direct risk to life or property, a license is not required to discuss emergency communications. Okay? So let's assume that everything is working with your radio. The first person on the radio becomes a net control operator. Now remember, that's a fancy network, radio network term, but what it actually means is you are the kindergarten teacher. You are listening for emergencies, you are writing them down, you are trying to control the traffic on that frequency. Now, when someone more qualified comes along, or the Emergency Operations Center is staffed up and an established communication infrastructure is in place, you may be relieved of that net control operation. But remember, first person on the radio is a net control operator, gathering information and figuring out what's happening. What you may ask people to do is, who's out there? Please check in. Where are you at? What's happening in the community? What are the dangers? What are the problems? Start writing those things down. And if you have to write it down, because if you do not write it down, you will forget it. There will be many, many things happening. Things are only going to get worse in terms of reports of problems. I've been there in this situation. I always thought, initially that I don't need to write it down, but I learned very quickly that unless you write it down, you will never catch up. Okay. The other thing is you may be giving your notes to someone else because you may have to go to a different situation. Okay. Write it or you'll forget it. I mean, that's something very important to know. The next most important thing is that when you're operating the radio, press that transmit button and then wait 2 seconds before talking. If you don't do that, it takes a tiny bit of time for that radio to power up. If you don't wait those 2 seconds, the first part of the communication will be clipped off. So very important. Press that button and then wait 2 seconds before talking. Now, in a disaster, in an emergency, we are all nervous. We all talk quickly. Slow down. Okay? Communication is not communication until the other end understands your message. Very, very important. It happens all the time. Remember this. Slow, clear communications. And the other important thing in operating the radio is hold it about 1 to 2 inches from your mouth. A lot of people make the mistake of holding it too far away, and at that point, the conversation is very, very hard to hear. Most radios were designed with the microphone to be held about 2 inches. For official communication where something is going to be sent to the Emergency Operations Center of the city, to the EOC, speak your message in 5-word groups. Remember, there is someone at the other end who is writing that down. Now, a lot of people forget this, and early on, I probably did the same thing. I spoke a little too fast, and my grouping was much larger than 5 words. I learned very quickly when I was at the other end at an emergency operations center having to copy that stuff down. You learn why is very important to slow down and group it in 5 words. Okay? And the most important thing is always think about safety. In disaster emergency situations, the situation is changing. It's dangerous. There are problems that are appearing when you least expect it. You need to keep everyone informed of any dangers, and you need to actually look at the situation, and it is more important to look around and take care of your own safety than to focus on that message, because lots of problems happen very quickly. Disasters are dangerous situations. Always think safety. One of the most important terms that you'll be hearing over and over again in any disaster communications is the term Emergency Operations Center. More commonly, you will hear the abbreviation EOC. Now, that's actually a very simple concept, and what happens after disaster, in most cases, the infrastructure of a city is destroyed. The 911 system is gone, telephones are gone, communication out to fire stations is disrupted, police have a hard time communicating. So what happens is the city very quickly establishes an emergency operations center where all the top level people, the fire chief, the police chief, the public works department, all the people that need to work together as a team to resolve problems are located in a place called the Emergency Operations Center. Now, a lot of times it's a pre-established place, but you also have to remember that disasters destroy buildings, and a lot of times the Emergency Operations Center is wherever we can find a safe building and we can staff it with the right people. And the way we communicate with the Emergency Operations Center is usually via amateur radio. And that's the RACES team, the Emergency Communication Volunteer Team. Now what happens is that at the Emergency Operations Center, they very quickly need to know what is happening in the city, what is wrong, what are the problems, because they need to start requesting help from the county, the state, and the federal government. Because disasters are overwhelming, we do not have the resources to help everyone. Help has to be coming from the outside. And at the same time, we have to be able to effectively organize our limited resources, and that happens at the top levels at the Emergency Operations Center. Now, the CERT teams are essential to this process because the CERT teams are in the community. They know what the problems are. They know where the fires are. They know where the disaster issues are, the medical problems. They need to gather that information and relay that to the Emergency Operations Center. Now, in most cases, the way it will work is CERT communications will be talking to the amateur radio, the RACES amateur radio operators, who then have staff in the Emergency Operations Center. They have staff that are volunteering and going to the hospitals and all the critical infrastructure. And it's a two-way process. The CERT teams feed the information up to the City Emergency Operations Center, and the Emergency Operations Center people at that level are going to work really hard to try to get the resources to the community and to the CERT teams. So that term EOC, that is a communication point and the decision-making point for the city. And it's called EOC, or Emergency Operations Center, and you will hear that very frequently.